it's not time management that I see holding people back the most. It's energy and attentionality management, and how you allocate those makes the difference on whether you're going to go to your next level, both business and both in just your rhythm of life.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast, where we explore the seismic shifts that are shaking up our lives and our work. And I am so excited, y'all, to introduce to you my guest, the one, the only, David Nurse is in the house.
Yeah. What's up, Michelle?
I'm so excited. He's calling in from California, but this dude is all over the world. He's a former NBA player, a former professional basketball player. He's a former NBA coach. He is now one of the top 50 keynote speakers in the world. He's also an executive coach and an author. And what I'm really excited about today is to learn from him, and for all of my listeners to learn from you, David, about mindset. You are all about maximizing performance, maximizing talent, and it's all about mindset. So we're going to dig in, and all of my listeners know before we dig into the topic of the day, I really want to get to know more about you. So your bio is super impressive. I want to know your story. So connection, which is what I'm about, and we've got to go deeper. And so tell us your story.
Yeah. So, I was born, I grew up in a small town in middle of nowhere, Iowa. All I wanted to do was play in the NBA. Literally, I had no backup plan. I'm not that tall. I'm 6'2". My vertical leap's about half an inch. So my parents probably should have said, try out tennis or golf, something you maybe have a chance at. Not basketball, but I loved it. So I just, I played and grinded my way to play college basketball. Still, no backup plan, Michelle. I was like, you know what? I'm going to the NBA. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to the NBA. I was far from it. Let's just be honest. I'm over playing professionally in Australia, Greece, and my third year in Spain, where it's more like Will Ferrell's Semi-Pro, the movie, than it is actual professional basketball, where they're concerned about where the party is after the game. And I'm here doing two-a-days. I'm film study. I'm like putting all this extra work in mindset. And after the first preseason game, I think we all have these moments, I call them snapshot moments, where you can just recall exactly where you were, how you felt, everything, the surroundings. We're in northern Spain, in Espedia, Spain, the Basque region, where they don't even speak Spanish, which I didn't know at the time. And it's after the first preseason game, the coach calls me over, and I'm thinking he's going to be like, David, you're our captain. We're going to get you NBA looks, maybe a deal with the Lakers next year if you play well. But he said, we're sending you home. You can't cut it. So Think about this. Everything that I poured into my life, and people have this, whether it's their whole life, whether it's a year, whatever it might be, was taken away from me with no backup plan, basically insult to injury. I don't know what I'm going to do. I go back and I'm living on my parents' recliner chair. They live outside of Kansas City in a small town called Kearney, Missouri. And I'm licking my wounds for like 6 months. I'm just, feeling bad for myself. And my mom would always say these motivational and inspirational quotes. And, with moms, it's kind of like, whatever, in one ear, out the other ear. But another snapshot moment that really changed, my momentum in life and just my outlook. She said when she was doing dishes, I remember this vividly, I was kicked back in the recliner chair. She said, David, when one door closes, 4 open in an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean. And I was like, hold up, what? 4? What? I thought it was one door. What's this 4 doors and beachfront patio thing? And what she was saying is, when an opportunity is taken away, it's not gone. Everything is a learned skill. You're learning new skills to lead you to something to come. And I view life now as, kind of opened my eyes there. It's a long hallway, right? Like we start in one door, we learn something. Okay, now I'm walking down the hallway. I go to another door, learn something there. Continuous learning throughout life. And when she said that, I was like, you know what? All of what I learned to pour into myself and skills and abilities was not for me to play in the NBA, but it was for myself to coach NBA players who had more God-given ability and 7-foot height. So that's when I made it my goal that I was going to coach in the NBA. And that's a whole story we can get into too.
And you did. And you did.
I did. Yes. And it was, there's some crazy things that happened. And I don't want to dominate it with all my story, but eventually we got to the NBA, coaching in the NBA with the Brooklyn Nets, basically through, I wrote handwritten letters to NBA GMs once I made that decision that I wanted to coach in the NBA, like old school style. Michelle, I got nothing back. For like a month and a half, I get a phone call from 310 area code number. That's Los Angeles. And it's the GM of the Los Angeles Clippers, Gary Sachs. He called me and we just have this, normal conversation. At the end of it, he said, "Hey, if you're ever out in LA, look me up. We'll grab coffee." Basically, good luck with the rest of your life, kid. But I took it as an opportunity. Once again, if they open the door, you go take that opportunity. 4 doors will open. So I spent all my money, stole some of my parents' money to book a ticket to be out in LA that next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, acting like I had a basketball camp to do so I didn't look desperate. I prepared for this meeting. Gary and I hit it off. Every NBA connection leading up to 5 years down the road when the Brooklyn Nets brought me on as their player development coach stemmed from Gary Sachs. Now check this out. This was a random, cold letter, basically. Had I not taken that chance, I would have been at the same place, right? So I always tell people, and it's hard for them to understand, of like, there really is nothing to lose. Life is a win-win game. If he would have said no, everybody would have said no. That doesn't mean it's over. That just means on to something next. And I have like the only thing you have to lose is if you die, and then you don't have to worry about what, if someone's going to say no. So Gary and I become friends. He's one of my best friends to this day. I lived with him when I moved out to LA. When I started training players out here, he was in my wedding. Like everything stems from, that relationship there. And I think that's, like you talk about connection, just how.
Oh my goodness. I would love to interview him and ask him, what was it in that handwritten letter from a young David Nurse that prompted him to take action? Has he ever told you?
Yeah, I think so I've seen it with other people. Like he'll take calls with people who are just trying to get in. He just has that kind of heart because he had to work his way up from the bottom to the GM spot. So he has that heart for people. And it's funny because one of the people he introduced me to become a very good friend of mine, Eric Spoelstra. And he's one of the top sports coaches in the last 50 years, but he has the same story. He worked his way from the bottom. So he's always open, to helping people. And I think that's
so you get somebody with a heart who wants to help people, who sees something in you. You go out, you meet him. He changed the course of your life. You end up coaching. Then how did you segue to doing what you do now, being one of the top keynote speakers in the world, top executive coaches, author? How did you get there?
Yeah. So I got fired my first year in from Brooklyn. I thought I was in. It took 5 years to get there. We go from 28th in 3-point percentage to second. So I was getting all this media, NBA, like hype, this young and up and coming coach. He's going to be in for a long time. And the head coach got fired at the end of the season. So when that happens in sports, pretty much the whole staff.
Oh my goodness.
So, once again, Michelle, it's like, all right, 1 door closes, 4 are going to open. And it was hard, of course, like that was my dream to be there. I come out to Los Angeles. I start training NBA players. It grows. I get together with this guy, Casey Wasserman, brings me on to run his basketball agency. So I'm working with tons of NBA players. And at one point I had like 25 NBA players, like high level players I was training. This would have been 2018. And I just had this moment. I was like, I'm not loving showing up at the gym at 6 a.m. and staying on court all day till 6 p.m. But I do love the aspect of seeing them become motivated, changing their mindset, helping them with their self-belief. So what is it I can use? Like we talked about, what are the skills, these transferable skills to take to something else? And I had a friend named John Gordon, who's a phenomenal speaker and author. He's like, dude, you should get into speaking. You should write books. But I had no idea. I had no idea how to get into it. But I knew like, hey, I'm going to pursue this avenue, just like I did the NBA. I'm a big believer in there's someone that knows the wisdom from the wise. I'm going to go seek it out. I'm going to figure out how to do it. And that's kind of how we got to.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So just in 2018, you pivoted and then became this global speaking superstar.
Well, I mean, that's very kind of you to say global superstar. I don't know if that's,
That's
but hey,
incredible, David. What a story. And I love your optimism. And I don't know if you follow the Saints, but considering I run the Saints and Pelicans Leadership Academy, I'm semi obsessed with our teams. I'm based in New Orleans, and there's been a transition in our head coach. So we went from Dennis Allen in 1 week, and we got a new coach, Darren Rizzi. And he played against the Atlanta Falcons in our division, his first game as the coach this past Sunday. And we beat the Atlanta Falcons. And there was something that has to do with you and talking to you that I truly believe in. You and I are both probably semi obsessed with leadership and helping people get to the next level. And usually I'm at the games. I wasn't even at the games because I just come back from a 7-day leadership cruise, a 7-day cruise, which was a business retreat. So I had just come back. I wasn't at the game, even though it was home. I watch it on TV. And David, our new interim coaches energy was infectious and palpable through the TV. And I'm watching and I said, look at that. The team is fighting for him because of his energy. And I just found it fascinating. Dennis Allen did a great job. He got us to this level. He didn't have that energy. I think infectious energy, and you have it. So as I was listening to you, like, wait a second. And then you decided to become a keynote speaker, an author, and now you're one of the top. There is something about, if you think about true leadership, it's when people want to follow you. And immediately you have this beautiful, positive, optimistic, I can do it, but listen to how many times I failed or stumbled or whatever, fell on my face. And it's okay because then I went through the other door, and people are attracted to that. So bravo, David Nurse.
so kind of you. I received that. Thank you so much, Michelle.
You know what I want to know, going back to your story, and I love your mother and doing the dishes and you're lounging around, and she talked about the 4 doors rather than the 1 door. And she painted a vivid image for you of a beach. And I'm thinking, but wait, aren't you outside of Kansas City?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, but that's a really good image to say. And I swear, David, there are 4 doors and they're all going to the beach. And you're like, I'm there, right? Kind of motivated you. Okay. So that's your story. So now you're out in California, and I want to hear behind you are 2 great images of pivot and go and breakthrough. I really want to dive deep into mindset. But again, before we go deep into that, this whole podcast is called The Seismic Shift because I'm really interested in what people like you in different industries, and you have a very different industry, of what are the seismic shifts that you're seeing that are taking place in your world? What are some of the seismic shifts? And then we can go into mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think in this industry that I'm in terms of mindset, optimization, continued growth is it's not just one tier. I think it's a holistic package of viewing yourself like possibly like an NBA or professional athlete would, of how do you take care of your sleep at the highest level? How do you take care of your nutrition? How do you take care of your recovery, longevity? I think people are coming around to understanding that, like, you can't just run off one thing. You can't just run off continued grit and drive. Like, even I think the days of I hope so. The days of the David Goggins, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. and I'm grinding. No, you're not. Like, you're literally not. You're going to hate your life. You're going to have a horrible marriage. It's,
Right.
I think everything is how do you fill yourself so that you can fill others with that purpose.
So you go into right away, work-life balance, which I am hoping to goodness this is a seismic shift, like you said, away from you must grind. And you're absolutely right. And then what happens? Your marriage falls apart. You don't have a good relationship with your children. You've dedicated your entire life in your office. You're unhealthy. You've gained all this weight. You have high blood pressure. Really? Is that I hope we don't go back to that, because I feel like that is in our rearview mirror. And we have an opportunity now to build workplaces and work environments that welcomes healthy humans.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. One of the big things that I talk to CEOs now about is, so what got them to that level? Everybody has a next level. And for the most part, what got somebody to some level is not going to be the thing that gets them to the next level, right? Like you can hard work your way to a certain level, but if you really want to hit what your full potential is, you got to change some things up. And I talk a lot about how can you have more of you, but less of you. And it's a very interesting concept to think
Tell
about.
me
Like,
more. Tell me
so
more.
instead of thinking in like a 2X mindset, because most people are thinking about continued slow growth on a 2X mindset, I'm going to do this by myself. How can you think about a 10X mindset? Meaning, like, what are the things that I can do that can take this to another? What do I need to delegate? There's a lot of things, if you go through it, about, I would say probably 85% of the things that most CEOs do or most people in general do are pretty much busy work, because we have this feeling of, I've got to be busy so that I look productive, so that people think I'm important. That's definitely not true. And I've been trying to build, and I'm really big on building systems and processes, because system plus process equals results. Results don't just come by themselves, but even in terms of like, when do you respond to emails? I've been trying to bucket time into different sections, like text messaging and emails. I'm going to give 30 minutes to it in the morning. I'm going to give 30 minutes to it in the afternoon, because once you find yourself going down this rabbit hole of, oh, I got to get back to this email, I'm going to check this email. Not only is it draining, but the attention and energy that you spend on that takes you right away from something else you might have deep focus in, deep work in. And I'm a nut for figuring out how to get into the flow state. And if you take any distraction, whether you have your phone on, whether you have the notifications on your computer, even just little email Outlook thing that comes up in a red dot and you want to click it, it's going to take you out of any kind of flow state that you're in. And everything ultimately, it's not time management that I see holding people back the most. It's energy and attentionality management. And how you allocate those makes the difference on whether you're going to go to your next level, both business and both in just your rhythm of life.
Oh my gosh, you said so many, or you gave such beautiful advice right there. I'm laughing at myself because I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh my gosh, thank you for being so responsive. And I'm thinking, oh, that's probably not a compliment, because I'm like, boom, 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 right? And I'm thinking, yeah, I probably should bucket, and I don't at all. I never thought about that, bucketing my text and my email.
It's situational, right? Like if you want to make an impression with somebody at the start, just to get back to them and get the report to them, I get that. That makes sense. But even more so for the person who, they might be an office worker and they're getting back to their boss after hours, 7 o'clock. They're emailing from their phone when they're sitting by their spouse, and you act like you're together, but that time is really just, it's distant. So you have to create those barriers. I always talk to CEOs like, what's your recharge? Like, how are you recharging every evening? It's not just a 1-day recharge on the weekend, but you need to start your day with some kind of way of getting in. Obviously, morning routines talked about all the time, really important. And you have to recharge your day at the end so that you're able to function at your highest level the next day.
Okay, so let's learn from you. Tell us about your typical day, David Nurse.
Okay, well, this is kind of, I don't mean, there's a lot of different things. I might be on a plane here and there, but we'll start with the morning routine. So the morning routine, and I'll do this on the road, I'll do it at home. It's when I wake up, I take a cold shower, ice cold shower, first thing that I do. One, it wakes me up. And two, I'm a big believer. I did this in Pivot and Go. I did all these, these studies. I call it mental dictatorship. So for 10 years, when I was training NBA players, I bring a stopwatch. Anytime I felt like they didn't want to do the workout, because a lot of times they don't want to do the workout, I hit the stopwatch and see how long it took for them to get in the flow of, okay, like I'm good. And 17 seconds was the average time that came up. So 17 seconds until your mind can overcome what you want to do. So I go in the ice cold shower, first 17 seconds. It always sucks. I don't like it. But after that, I'm good. So it's kind of one of those things like people say, like, do the hard thing or eat the frog. I mean,
make your bed. And now cold plunging is so in vogue.
I was doing the ice cold shower before cold plunging got big, but I like it. Cold plunge is cool. So then I'll make coffee while I listen to praise and worship music. Nice, relaxing, getting into that joyful state of mind, thankful state of mind. And I love coffee and just the process of making a Chemex coffee. Make the coffee. I'll have 5 minutes where I'm just sitting there and just there's no agenda on it. This is when I try to just listen, because I think that God speaks to us through these times, through these moments where we're not always on or not always busy, not always, trying to put something to paper. A lot of times my mind will wander. So I'm not saying I'm great at that, but I allocate that time. I'll have some kind of thing, a devotional that I might read. And it'll take only, like 25, 30 minutes max. Sometimes I can't get to it. Obviously, I know people who have kids are like, what do you do if you have kids? Well, you got to make do where you can. You might have to be later in the day. You can have that. The morning routine doesn't just have to be in the morning. You can also use it as a reset. I think resets are so important because once somebody starts going down their day and it's all going haywire, they just think the day's a wash. But in sports, if your first half sucks, what do? Halftime, it's a change of environment. It's a change of, everything changes. Now you can reset for the second half. So I think you can do that. Well, I know you can do that for your normal life too.
So then you enter your workday and you've allocated time. You've been intentional with your time for here's when I'm going to check text messages and emails. And then you have your phone down. You don't do it again until lunch. And then you don't do it again until dinner. Is that how it's bucketed?
Yes. In my ideal days, that's how I do it. Yes. So then I'll also have my big three. I'll set my big three at the end of the day so that I'm not wondering what do I have to get to. My big three are the three things that I want to focus on during that day. So maybe I have to, prepare a talk for the next week for a company. So that'll be one. Something I'm doing on the podcast, that'll be one. Maybe I'm writing, it's in book writing season, that'll be one. So I'll make sure that I know, hey, these are the things I want to focus on. This is my creative time. And that kind of like, for me, I'm a morning person. We have different, different where you function in the morning, in the afternoon, in the chronotypes. That's what I was going for. Different chronotypes. Mine's morning. So I know I'm going to do my creative work in the morning, more of that's why I do email, just to check, but then more at the end of the day. And maybe there's calls with clients during the middle of the day where I don't have to be as thinking and creative, but more, coaching aspect. And then, I have the time bucket. So I try to make that's the system that I have. Not always great to it, but I know I have that plan in place, and that gives me a lot of confidence in it too, because I'm a big believer in discipline creates freedom. It's not you just want freedom. You want discipline because then you're able to work within those discipline systems and lines to create that kind of freedom.
So you mean by the end of your workday, you come up with your 3 priorities for the next day so that you already know where your time is going to be spent, so that then when you end your workday, you close your laptop and you're with your wife and you're doing dinner, then you can really disconnect.
Totally. Yes. And we have closing time. So my wife and I communicate on what time we're both shutting down. She's an actor and producer and writer, so she's doing her own thing. So we always communicate, what's the end of the day look like? And I mean, if you're going to talk about like one thing that's the most important in business and relationships, I know it sounds cheesy and it's like a soft skill, communication. Communication is anything but a soft skill. Like you're telling someone to have a hard conversation, communication, feedback, give feedback. Ain't nothing easy about it, but it is incredibly vital. So always make sure my wife and I that we're on the same page at the start of the week and when we're shutting down for the day. Then I'll assess my big 3. So what I set for the start of the day, I'll assess it at the end of the day. Okay, maybe I didn't get to everything. That's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up for it. Let's go. We'll put it on to the next day, or there's something else for the next day.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So I'm actually writing my second book right now with my co-author, who's my mentor, Marshall Goldsmith. And he actually wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yeah,
what got you here won't get you there, which is what you were just talking about, that you work with a lot of your CEOs on that mindset. In any case, he's 75 years old. He's amazing. He's written 45 books and he's co-authoring this book with me. And it's called The Seismic Shift in You, the 7 necessary shifts to create more connection in your life. And one of the shifts I'm talking about is mindset and energy. So I would love to highlight you in the chapter. And I want you to talk about how do you harness this mindset and this energy that you and I both see is so important, particularly for leadership. But you'll have some naysayers, not really naysayers, but people saying, yeah, but I didn't come out of the womb like you, David. I don't have your energy and your mindset and your positive optimism. What do you say to people like that? And what advice can you give that we can include in the book about how you develop this mindset and this energy?
Yeah. I mean, I think everything is literally perspective. When it comes down to it, it's just however you look at something, right? Like you can look at something either way. You can look at, for example, you can look at a hammer as a great, amazing tool to build a house. You can also look at a hammer as the most deadly murder weapon. Like it's the same thing. It's just how you look at it. And I think that's such an important aspect to have of like, have perspective on is what you're doing actually the end all be all, and does it really matter? So you could even do this. This is one thing that I love to do. My wife loves ancestry.com. So I'll look over her shoulder and she'll be going deep, like in the 1600s and 1500s. And I'm like, all these people in my background that led to me, I have no idea who they are. I know they were going through their own life, their own stresses, and then now they're dead. They're gone. Like 100 years from now, nobody on this planet probably, unless you're just being bored, will be here. So what's the big stressor that we have? And I also know that, a lot of people will think like, well, what are they going to think of me? What are they going to say? People will spend, we have 86,400 seconds in a day. Likely if someone says something to you or they give you a look, they're thinking about you for 10 seconds and they spend the rest of their time thinking about themselves while we spend the rest of our time thinking about what they thought. So it's just so counterintuitive in so many ways. But there's two things for me that I know, like I'm okay with whatever happens. Like I love, trying to grow, trying to progress, trying to empower and inspire people. But if I write no more books, if I give no more talks, any of that, I know that I have my wife who loves me unconditionally. I've never woke up one day without ever questioning that. And I love her unconditionally. And I know that I have God. I know I have those two things, faith in God and Jesus and my wife. And like everything else is just, it's a cherry on top, whatever happens in that. So that gives me great perspective to not stress and worry about so much of, what am I going to make this month? Or what if I don't get this? Or what if people think of this of me? I genuinely just put it in the bucket of, I don't really care that much.
That is true. That is a real problem right now, particularly with the younger kids. And I've got a 20-year-old in college and thinking about what everybody else is thinking about her, the social comparison. And that's really, really hard. So when people say, yeah, but David, you're just so optimistic and positive. How can I be like you? So you pretty much say, look, you get a choice. It's about perspective. You can see either the hammer as a weapon or the hammer as, wait, what was the other way we use a hammer? Not a weapon, to build a house.
Build a house. Yeah. Don't worry. I'm not a handyman, Michelle. So I've never actually used that. I don't really know. Not a murderer either. I promise. Yes. So there is, perspective is one, but there's also, it's a daily habit of tools that you implement, just like physical skills. Like if it's a basketball player, you can't work on a jump shot one time and be like, I got it down every day. So in that morning routine, like writing down things of gratitude. And I know it's kind of cliche to say, but honestly, when you start putting yourself in that state of mind from the start of the day, it bleeds into the rest of your day. There's different things, like I have tools called the bucket of lies and the bucket of truths. Anything that somebody says to you, everything comes down to an awareness of, right? Is your awareness of in the moment. So if someone says something, I stop analytically. I think, well, is that a truth or is that a lie? Okay, it's probably them trying to transpose something that they're feeling inside themselves on me. So you know what? I'm going to put that in the bucket of lies. But maybe it's the truth. So you get to analytically use the bucket of truth and the bucket of lies to see what's real and what's not real. There's tools like a friend of mine, Dr. Daniel Amen. He has one called ANTS, automatic negative thoughts. So anytime you have this thought, because you're either, thinking or you're talking to yourself, whichever one, if you just let yourself think, it's usually your thoughts are going to control you. ANTS, just like an ant, when that automatic negative thought comes up, you do an action like you're squashing an ant. So big on the physical tools tied to the mental, that the physical is tied to the mental, psychological to the physiology. And that kind of makes you laugh too when you squash that ant. So you're like, ooh, it's probably not that big of a deal. And there's another tool, like, once again, awareness of in the moment, snapping your fingers. So it's kind of like the movie The Matrix, where they stop time. SNAP stands for stop, notice, assess, pivot. Stop, awareness of, notice what's going on, awareness of, why am I feeling this way? Why is my coworker hitting me over the head with a book? Why is my kid throwing a frying pan at me? Like, whatever that might be, analyze it, and then pivot. Pivot's a small turn, shift of perspective. So there's that tool, tying that snap to your mind gives you that trigger. So there's a lot of tools. I've got many, many more tools that you can use and utilize through your day to help build this type of perspective and build this type of, positive, actual, truthful, positive outlook on life.
Well, we need help. And thank you for developing tools, because in all of my research, one of the things that my leaders and I talk about all the time is, why can't everybody just assume positive intent about their teammates? Well, I wanted to go deep with that and explore, why can't we as humans assume positive intent? And it's because we have thousands of thoughts each day, and 80% of them are negative. To be human, unfortunately, is often to assume negative because of the survival and fight or flight and all of these. It goes way, way, way back to the caveman era. And so it's hard for us to do. So I'm glad that you gave us tools, knowing that every day we're going to assume that somebody is maybe thinking or about us, when you're absolutely right. They're just thinking about themselves. And if they're taking it out on us, it's probably because they're having a bad day and it has nothing to do with us. But the more we learn about that and know about that and educate ourselves and remind ourselves, and we're aware of that, and we can utilize your tips, then we can stomp, like using that ant. I like that. You can stomp it out and say, it really has nothing to do with me. And I know who I am, and I'm going to assume positive intent, and I'm going to go forward and try to make a difference in my day. So I love that. And which book should they buy if they're interested in learning more about your tips on mindset?
I mean, all of them. I have a third one that's not pictured up there. So you buy the whole collection.
What is your third one? What is your third one?
I haven't put it up yet. Do it. It gives you an action archetype. So what is the fear holding you back? It's kind of like the Enneagram, but you understand like what your action archetype is. And there's 9 different ways of action takers. It's more based on that and stories of historical figures through a kind of a historical fiction type of way. But Pivot and Go would be the best one for the mindset tools. I've got 29 mindset tools. You do one of them each day. It's easy read. It's a fun read. But yeah, that's probably the one I'd recommend the most.
You're so inspirational, David. You really are. Thank you so much for being on the Seismic Shift podcast. Thank you for sharing your stories. Listeners, he's got 3 books out. If you want to learn more about mindset and the 29 tips that you can utilize in 1 month to kind of get a better, more positive mindset, like the one and only David Nurse, then go out and buy Pivot and Go. And I'm sure you're probably working on another book. So let's end this session with what's next for you, David. Inspire us.
Next thing, I'm working on a big project called the Flow Code. I've always been enamored with flow state. No athlete, no high performer has ever been to say, hey, here's how I got into it. It's just it happened. But I know there's a way. I'm working with some neuroscientists. We've got a formula that we're going to do a whole, IRB scientific reviewed study at all this to figure out the way to get into flow state more regularly and stay in it longer. So I'm really excited to see what comes from that.
That is super exciting. Thank you all to all the listeners who tuned in to hear about the one and only David Nurse. Y'all have a great day. And thank you again, David.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.